This is the Authentic Dating series brought to you by Ahmad and David,
where we explore what it takes to have a dating life you're excited about.
Hi, I'm David.
I'm Ahmad.
And this is the Authentic Dating series. So yeah, we got our intro right there, which is good. So today on the Authentic Dating series, what are we going to be chatting about today, Ahmad?
So, today's conversation is going to be about sex talk. And essentially what it is that makes you so good at speaking to not just women, but in fact in groups and, men, women, wherever you are, wherever you've been in the world. So for our new listeners and anyone who's not heard of this before, David is renowned across the world for being very adept at introducing sex into any conversation. Stories go, he once met the Queen and spoke to her about sex.
Yes, with the corgis.
Yes, with the corgis, not to the Queen, of course. This was a lie and a joke, for those who don't understand.
But I did meet the Queen.
Yeah, but so actually, we thought we'd switch up the format in this particular podcast, and so I'm going to be interviewing David.
Because normally AJ gets all chatty and talks for the whole hour of the episode.
Yeah, so. Except for the bits where I don't talk and you talk.
Yeah, those very small parts.
No, it's not true. I edited a couple of the episodes and I saw how much you talk.
So very, very little.
Yeah. So today we're going to be, exploring this and the reason why is actually it's become more and more obvious to us that two things. Number one, women keep asking us about it, like in terms of for men talking about sex, like how can they improve? And it's also in our awareness, it's not like men have been asking us about it, but in our awareness of around this topic, it's that it's something that a lot of men have little understanding in regards to their ability to talk to women about sex, how it can be an okay topic to just introduce, and just comfort, and I think a lot of that's going to come out.
And I also think it's like, we've been talking to a couple of people on Instagram, especially women. Surprisingly, we run a podcast that we aimed at helping men, and women love talking to us about, and we love talking to them. Like, we love the girls that get in contact with us. It's great. The ideas they have are amazing and they really resonate with us. But they come with topics about what we should kind of talk about. And sex is quite a common recurring thing that kind of comes up that women are really interested about our take on.
Yeah. Yeah, men don't really give us too many topics to talk about.
They just want to know how to talk to girls in various places.
Different locations. At different times of the day.
Yeah.
Is it evening?
How do I talk to her?
Yeah. Afternoon tea. How do I talk to her?
With the pinky finger in the air.
Yeah. So that's what today's topic is going to be on. And before we launch right into that, just a little message to say thank you to all of our listeners. We've really seen an uptick in all of the listenings, especially in the last few episodes. So we're obviously doing something right.
Yeah.
Talking about sex more clearly is
people love sex. Sex. Maybe we'll call the episode title should be sex.
Sex and more. But I think in particular that episode on casual sex.
You guys like that one?
Yeah. I thought the title wasn't going to be so good, but then, the numbers say otherwise. Yeah. So just thanks to all the listeners and everyone who's been supporting us from the start. And also, for anyone who is really enjoying this content, if you haven't done so already, because everyone else who's enjoying it has done this, is go along to iTunes or your favorite podcast listening place, which is mostly iTunes, and add a review. Let us know how we're doing, because it really does help us to understand like what's working, what you'd like to hear more of, and also everyone loves validation.
Yeah, and we're no different from other human beings.
Yeah, I don't even eat. I just live with that.
Live off the validation.
Live off that. The glowing fumes of validation.
So while we're on the topic of validations, it'd be nice if you went to our Instagram and validated us there on multiple vibrational levels. I mean, we share, and tell your grandmother about our episodes would be great. Only if she's single and stuff.
Well, what I've realized as well, and this is just, you don't even have to overly mention us, but what I find is if you do find something that we've said or you've learned from us, share it with a friend. Like, share what you've learned, and don't keep it to yourself, you greedy bastard.
Yeah, tell the world. If you learn something, you don't ideally tell us, and then we can like share it that you shared it, and we can get into that Instagram inception thing that we enjoy.
We'll get fat off the validation.
We'll be no food for us, just validation.
Sustenance.
Likes and comments.
Delicious.
Who needs fried chicken when you can get likes and comments?
So yeah, go on, Dave. You're saying.
What was I saying? Instagram, yeah. So go and find us on Instagram. We are even funnier on Instagram than we are on here, but we're far less funny in person.
Quite the bore. I've been watching Star Trek. True story.
I watched Handmaiden's Tale the other night. I was like, this is depressing shit.
I'm not even joking. I had a fucking moment this morning. That came out wrong. I had a moment this morning. It wasn't.
Was it a fucking moment?
It wasn't. I wasn't having sex, but I had a moment. What I meant to say was, I had a moment where I was like, "Wow, this would be the pinnacle of a lot of different guys." Not even joking. I made a Klingon sound like tak nak and Chloe was busting up. There was something like reference to humans being stupid or something. It'd be like,
Did she watch Star Trek with you?
Yeah, she's watching it. Yeah.
It's good. The new series of Star Trek, if you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix.
It will get you laid. There's even the scene with the Klingon and I don't know. I'm not quite sure what happened, but there was some lusting.
There's some lusting.
And then I was like, man, he was really distraught. Dave would have been fine.
Same way.
They would have been like, something like Klingon. She was all right still. So, and on that note, so please share, like, and yes, feed us with that
substance.
Yeah. So let's jump into this. I think I'm actually very excited because I've actually had this as a bit of an idea from right at the start, but we had a lot of other things to talk about first. But you see, Dave and I've mentioned this in previous episodes, but we come from different ends of the same sort of spectrum of authenticity, of dating, and understanding of relationships, and just what it is to be a human being. And so I think it's a really cool idea for me in this episode to interview David, who has been very accommodating and didn't even say no. And he's just like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So what's going to happen now is I'm literally just going to go, right, Dave. Is that the buzzer?
No.
That's the buzzer. Yeah, so just going to ask Dave a few questions. And the intention is, by the end of this, to really have an understanding from his point of view, what makes it so beautiful to talk about sex with women. Yeah,
let's do it.
So let's kick it off. So firstly, like, I get a sense of it, but I think it does confuse a lot of people. And so my first question to you is, like, why do you think talking about sex is so important? Because for you, whenever you mention it, it's almost like, how can you not do this?
Yeah. I feel like, when it comes to like dating, especially, I'd say even before dating, it could be something you can kind of really talk about if you're, texting or whatever. But also, especially in dating and when you're getting to know someone, even before you have sex with them and after you have sex with them, it's so important because it's a huge part of compatibility, in my opinion. For me personally, it's a huge part of kind of being compatible with someone. Like, that's one of the big important reasons why it's like, I want to know, in the same way that I want to know what someone's values are, about how, do they have ambition for life? Do they want to have children? I also want to know, how do you like to have sex? Do you like to have sex? What sort of sex do you like to have? And if the answers I get back from women is like, they don't really like having sex, they're not really into it, it's not something they feel passionate and lovely about, then maybe it's not the sort of woman for me.
Wow. I mean, that's a very powerful statement for one, because you're really kind of setting the tone in what you're looking for. And even as you were talking about it, like the feeling I got was, it was like you're not afraid to discuss actually something that's very important. It gets overlooked much in the dating sphere, in the dating world. People don't even really concentrate on this as a factor. They're talking about age, height, this, money, this, that, and the other. But when it really comes down to it, there's a lot of sex involved in relationships.
I think one of the things is, like, we, as a society, I think sex is a bit taboo still. I think it's a big taboo.
Oh, massive.
a lot of people don't think they should be talking about sex. Like, I'll joke about it even when I'm at work with people. Like, I was at work today and, what did I say? I said to one of the girls at work, we're quite close, we were quite jokey. And I was like, oh, how's your Tinder going? And she was like, oh, it's not going that well. Like, I can't be bothered. And I was like, well, as long as you've got a couple of regular guys you see, it's all good. You're getting enough, right? She's like, yeah, I only really feel like I want a boyfriend when I'm really hungover. And I said, yeah, I totally get that. Like, you just want someone to kind of hold you and tell you they love you, right? But in that conversation, I've managed to kind of talk about the fact that she needs to get regular sex. But it's all been very kind of lighthearted, very fun, But it's just very kind of calm and casual in that way. It's not kind of like, oh, well, you need to get some dick, don't you? Well, I could, I could even have said it like that. I know how I will, I kind of will joke in that way because I think that it's just something I will bring up with people in quite a lighthearted manner. And also there's a level of comfortability that I have with talking about it. It's like, I've had it times where you say something like that to a woman about sex and they're like, oh, and they kind of pull back and they're surprised. And I will even say, oh, what, do you feel uncomfortable talking about sex? Like, in a kind of very kind of comical way. And I feel like it's a bit of a test sometimes when women are like, oh, well, no, of course not. You're like, well, yeah, it's cool. We all have sex, right? We like doing it. That's why we are trying to breed and we are trying to date for a lot of the time, right? But I think it's really important that we include sexual compatibility in our compatibility of height and age and money and family and all these things, because I think that sex is massively overlooked.
Yeah, and there's an interesting thing you just said there about people's reaction to it, because I know this is not just something you exclusively do with women. Like, you actually just bring it up in groups. Groups of mixed genders, different people who associate with different genders, all the 53 different types.
You have to listen to a particular podcast to get that one.
What, Andy Frisella?
Frisella, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool business podcast. But he was just taking a mic, saying how many genders are.
Yeah, 53.
Yeah, it's like how many now? Yeah, but it's all cool. But genuinely, like, it is something that you bring up in different topics, and that's very interesting in how you are able to do that. And I guess it's because of, like you say, you do it in a very lighthearted. But actually, what I'm also getting from you is this sense of it, because you see, I'm aware, right? I'm aware of this factor. It's like you just said there, you could have been like, hey, you could be getting, you're getting a lot of dick, right? And some people are going to hear that and be like, right, okay, that's what I do. And then taking notes and they go off and next day at work, they're like, fuck, man, I got fired.
Yeah. It's like, you get fired. Yeah. Like me and some of my work colleagues, we have a very, like, we've known each other for a long time and we can joke about things that are funny to us.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go about just kind of dropping that in at work, but I mean, even with, I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Just like, what I'm trying to say is, like, you have a way of doing it in such that it doesn't come across as awkward.
Yeah. Because I guess for me, and I think a lot of that is my intention is purely just to our kind of two people to talk about something or our enjoyment. It's not for me to be, I'm not feeling weird or sleazy. I'm not kind of being like, oh, I want to know what panties you're wearing or something like that. It's like, it's actually just from a place of like love and compassion and enjoyment and fun.
I mean, this is actually something that I've always known about you. And I think I actually said this to you. I can actually remember, I think once we were on a stag together in Thailand. And I specifically remember saying this to you then, even though it's come up previous times as well. It's like you have a compassionate understanding of how women feel, and not just women but people in general. And so your ability to converse with them on that level and understand like what's offensive, what's not offensive, and to be able to just break the boundaries. But what's also interesting is like, 'cause I don't think that's common amongst men in general.
Yeah.
So is this something that, like, and we'll take this back to specifically about talking about sex. So is this like how you always were? Did you like when you were young, or when you became aware of sex, was it something that you were just at school, in high school?
So yeah, I guess no. So to answer the question, no. Like, I remember high school for me was like, I wasn't really like involved with women until very, very late on in high school. I was too busy playing football and running around the playground and stuff like that. Like, I just had no interest in women until I kind of got to uni. But one thing I always did from a young age, do you remember there was like these, I mentioned it in one of our other episodes, I think it was episode 4, we talk about sexual desire, where I used to watch all these programs. There's something called Sex Tips for Girls. I remember it called that. It used to be on quite late at night. And it was just all about kind of there's a lot about like sex toys and couples having sex and improving their sex lives, and I was just really fascinated by sex. Like I was just really interested, and to this day I still am incredibly interested in sex and learning about sex from other people and their experiences. So for me, was I always comfortable? I think once I started having sex, I started to see the importance of actually talking about it, because if you don't talk about it, you don't quite know what the other person wants or what they like. And equally, you know, from a dating point of view, like I said, it's like a compatibility thing, but equally it's like I want people around me to feel free to talk about whatever they want to talk about, and sex is one of those things that people don't necessarily feel free to talk about. So I feel like, I wouldn't say it's like my duty in the world, but it's like when I'm around, that's what I want to talk about. So it's like, let me put that out in the world, that around me, these things are completely free and open to speak about.
So what I'm getting from what you're saying then is that it's like you have a healthy curiosity.
Totally.
Yeah, and that's why it doesn't come across as awkward, because you're genuine.
Yeah.
Like first on a first basis, you're genuine. Like this is something that you're genuinely curious about. Yeah, you're also informed. You know, it's not just like kind of removed. And because I feel like in most cases when men are making sexual comments, it's almost like, you know, being 15 again.
Yeah.
And there's also that little snicker after. It's like
yeah. Whereas I'm like, it's totally not like that. I'm you know, I'm asking questions from an informed position. Like something, you know, it's not really about sex, but something I've been talking to women a lot recently. I was saying this before, and is about like moon cups and period cups, right? So I never knew these things existed until probably about 2 years ago. And then I saw them, the company I work for, I saw them on our website, and I was like, oh, what's this thing? And then I looked at it, and then I was like, oh, wow, this is really interesting. How does it work? And then I started to meet women, and I was talking to them about, you know, do they use pads or do they use tampons? Or it wouldn't necessarily be a conversation, but, you know, sometimes a woman opens her bag and then you see, I don't know, some tampons, and you're like, oh, there's tampons in your bag and whatever. You might talk about it, right? I feel very comfortable to talk about periods as well. And then I started talking to women about period cups, and I'd be like, oh, do you use one? Have you thought of using one? Do you know someone who uses one? And then I'm starting to learn about this thing that I don't know anything about, right? But I'm learning about women, you know. And to quote Johnny, I always quote Johnny Cassell, is like, if you're not around women, you're not learning about women. And it's really important to kind of learn what women are dealing with from a point of view of all areas. But like, I've always been very comfortable to talk about, you know, whether it be like vulvas and menstruation and things like that, because I think it's incredibly important for men to have an understanding and feeling comfortable talking about it. And I think it's a very attractive quality.
That's very interesting, because for me, I never really considered it, but having grown up in a family predominantly surrounded by women, it's just something that it's not something that I'm like aghast.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this before. I'm just like, oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's like, happens, you know, I'm the same situation, right? I grew up with me and my three sisters. And so going to the shop and buying tampons and going pads, it was just like,
you just see it.
It was just normal. I remember my mum sent me to the corner shop and was like, you need to go and get this pad, this coloured one. And I went over there to the corner shop and was like, I need this colour. And the man was like, yeah, cool, here you go. And I bought it and I went back home. And I must have been quite young, but I kind of knew what it was for.
Yeah.
But I didn't fully understand the full process. But sure. I probably just thought it was a nappy of some type, right? I probably was like 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah.
So now I've just kind of carried that into my life and been happy to talk to women about, you know, whether it's talking about sensation or the type of sex they have, like the sort of orgasms they have and stuff like that. And it just, for me, it kind of, I can be on a date and by the end of the date, we've had a full conversation about full body orgasms and how they orgasm and stuff like that.
Wow. Yeah, that's really powerful. And actually it leads me on to my next question, which is, and I'm sure everyone here is going to be very interested to know this, is like, how do you introduce sex into a conversation, especially because you mentioned earlier, you know, you're having a conversation with a friend, essentially, you know, whether it was a work colleague or not, but it's actually you two are friends. But now, you know, let's give two scenarios, right? One scenario, you're on a date, it's a first date, you've just met her, not just met her, it's like a arranged date. It's it's
blind date.
Yeah, blind date, yeah. Open the marriage sack. There she is. But yeah, you're on a date and it's your first proper date. And then another scenario where, let's say you're with a group of friends and it's mixed group, or you're traveling solo and it's mixed group, and you know, how are you introducing sex into these conversations?
Yeah, it's hard to say exactly how, because I think it will just kind of come to me in whatever's kind of going on or what we're talking about. But for instance, I won't shy away from telling a story that involves me saying, okay, so there was a girl I was seeing for a while, right? Or a girl I was sleeping with for a while.
Yeah.
So I think that's a first point, is like, I'm quite open to say that I'm sexually active, and I have been in my life.
So you're not hiding it.
No.
I think what I just got from what you said there was like a sense of like you're just stating the obvious.
Yeah.
Where people are not talking about the obvious, or they're just happy to like
pretend it's not there.
Yeah.
It's the elephant
You're
in the
like,
room.
yeah. So
I'll be like, yeah, look, there's an elephant in the room. Yeah, I will talk about it. And I'll joke about it as well, but it's very much in a very kind of comfortable manner.
What kind of joke? Because I know, again, a lot of jokes are being said about sex.
I might see it. I might joke about a guy who looks really sexually frustrated, or I might describe myself in the past as being sexually frustrated, or what else would I do? Yeah, just kind of what comes up, I won't kind of launch into just kind of going to a woman like, oh, what do you like in bed? Because that, you can't just lead into that, you know? You need to kind of lead into that slowly by, maybe talking about some of your own personal experience, your own personal sexual experience.
Yeah.
And it has to kind of flow into the conversation naturally, right? In a normal way.
So it's kind of like you're, number one, you're happy to state the obvious. Number two, you're very comfortable sharing your own experiences. You're not shy.
No.
You're not shy, you're not embarrassed.
No.
You're very accepting of your own experiences.
And I'm actually really, and another thing in this as well is, I guess it's a bit further on, but also accepting a woman's sexual experience as well is one of the things I will create around me, I think. And this is not really a conscious thing. It's just become something they do, is create an atmosphere of acceptance. Like whatever is going to be said is completely acceptable. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, like I can't believe you did that. Those words will never leave my mouth ever. Yeah. It's like, whatever you've done, I'm totally accepted. Like, I could be on a date with a woman and she says, oh yeah, so like, last week I had a threesome with 2 guys. I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Like, how was it for you? And it really is, because I'm really interested. Like, how was it? Like, I'm not judging. It's like totally cool. Like, how was it? And I think that's a really important thing to kind of create around you, an acceptance, like things are acceptable. Like I say now.
So what is like something that you reckon that most people would find bizarre, but you've just been very accepting of it? Because I get that was a bit of a theoretical.
Yeah, that's it. I've never spoken to someone who had that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been on dates with women tell me that they have particular fetishes around like leather or being dominated. Anal sex is quite a common one. I think anal sex is a really interesting one. It's quite taboo in our society still. It's still kind of really much linked with kind of gay sex. And I always think it's not surprising number of women that really love anal sex, but women do. For a lot of women you meet, you speak to, and you sleep with, I find they really enjoy anal sex. And if a woman talks to me about it, or I introduce it into this, I could even introduce it into a topic of conversation and be like, yeah, I like a bit of anal sex sometimes, mix it up,
mix it up. Yeah.
And I'm basically saying, that's where I'm willing to go, or my boundaries go a lot further than that, really, sexually. And I might even talk about some experiences, like, for instance, I've been to Torture Gardens, which is a kind of fetish party in London that happens on a monthly basis. I went quite a few years ago, and I'd be quite free to talk about that on a date and be like, I did this once. It was fun. I went to this crazy party. It was awesome. People were having sex everywhere. I had sex on a bed next to some other people, and I might tell some other stories from the evening, but I'm setting a scene of like, I'm sexually open and I'm sexually accepting as well.
Yeah. So then, because like this is something that I find very interesting as well, and I'm sure again a lot of the male listeners will be very close to the speakers or having their headphones deep inside the ears here, listening. Have you ever had a bad reaction? Like, you're there, you're speaking freely, and then the girl, maybe in a solo scenario or in a group where someone's just been like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Yeah,
have I? I can't think of one, if I'm honest.
Okay,
I can't think of one that registered to me as a negative reaction. Okay. I think that's a really interesting term, right? Because it's my perception. Maybe there was an internal negative reaction from a girl, and she was.
So no one's ever slapped you?
No,
punched
I don't think
you?
So. No. I've
called the police.
I had a date.
Handcuffs.
I had a date quite a few months ago, and we ended up talking about like sex and dating quite a lot. And, they never went anywhere after that date. And I kind of look back and go, maybe I just talked about having sex with other women just a bit too much. But that was quite interesting. So, but she was kind of polyamorous, so it was quite kind of in line with what we were doing.
Okay.
Yes, I don't think I've had negative reaction. I just feel like my real belief now is the sort of women that I draw towards me are women who are of my kind of open-minded sexual mindset. I really don't feel like I meet very many women now that aren't. And maybe that, and again, is that my perception of how women are? Because to me, I think we said this in other episodes, it's like a lot of guys have this perception that women don't want to have sex, and that it's kind of like women want love and care and relationships. And I'm not saying women don't want those things, because men want them too, but a lot of men having their ideas that they have to kind of get sex from women, and for me, it's like the world hasn't occurred like that. For me, it's like women want to have sex,
Yeah.
You just have to kind of like flow with it.
Well, you actually told me something once before, which is quite interesting, and it comes to me now, which is about how women, like a lot of men are just like, they're looking to have sex, and women, they really actually enjoy talking about sex. They really,
Yeah,
Tell
women,
me about that. Like,
I think women like to talk about sex because men are very visual, right? We're very visual creatures, men, for the most part. I'm generalizing here because it's easier for this purposes. And women are more emotional, so talking about something for a woman is almost like living it, right? For a man, talking about something is like, I'm talking about it, so I'm just talking about it, but I'm not doing it until I'm doing it. It's like, I've been at this tantra school for like the last 8 or 9 months, and one of the things they talk about is foreplay and the importance of foreplay, which I totally agree with as well. And they talk about how foreplay can be just talking, like talking about sex. It could be even like, just talking about regular things, but in a kind of slightly, how would you say, provocative way, you can, maybe this can be really crude and shitty, but maybe, you get the cucumber out and you send your girlfriend a picture of the cucumber, goes, would you like some cucumber tonight? That's a really bad example, but you know what I mean?
Sounds like a juicing concept.
Yeah, but I think women love to talk about sex because also they're very curious, and they're curious about, your experience. I find women to be very curious about my experience as a man and being with women as well. Like, one of the most common questions I think women ask is like, what do other vulvas look like? Other vulvas and vaginas, what do they look like? How do they feel? Are there different sizes? This is one of the most common thing. I've been on dates and gone into conversation and gone, oh, well, my research has taught me, and then I get out my research notes and explain
diagrams,
and because women are really interested in what other women are like, because they don't have get that experience. And I'm willing to talk about it in that way as well. But I think the one key thing I say here, man, is like, sex is a beautiful experience had between two people, and if you always talk about it in that way, you'll always be in a good place.
Nice. All right, so just one last question from me, I think, because and wrap this up from my side at least anyway, is then cool, we've discussed the whys and the hows and stuff, so what do you find yourself talking about most when you bring it up? Like, what is you mentioned a bit like what women ask you, but what are you curious about, and what do you often talk about with women? Pleasure,
like in terms of what women find pleasurable, or even, in terms of when you're on a date with women, sometimes talking directly about what they find pleasurable isn't necessarily appropriate yet until you've kind of got there. But even talking about your past experiences, like, I'll talk about some of my more interesting sexual escapades, or I'm just trying to think of the things that have come up, but like, I've talked about all sorts of weird and wonderful things. Like,
pick one. Pick one of those ones. Yeah.
There's one story that always brings to mind. Is there was a girl that I went out on a date with. This was like 8 or so years ago, 9 years ago, maybe, I don't know. And we ended up coming back to my place afterwards, and we're in bed, and we kind of just getting into having sex, and she was like, "How freaky are you?" And I was like, in my head, I'm like, this is an odd question. And I just said, and honestly, the answer just came out of my mouth without any thought. And it was just like, how freaky do you want me to be? And she kind of smiled and took my hands and put them around her throat.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I get what you want me to do. Okay, cool. And in all of this, it was all very cool. And I just, went along with it. She kind of liked to be choked slightly, or a bit more than slightly, if I remember rightly. And this was the first time this ever happened to me. So in my head, I'm kind of like, oh, this is odd. I've never experienced this before. But I was like, this is cool. This is what she wants. Be careful. I'm quite strong. I'm not going to be too kind of heavy handed. And I was like, oh, this is a new experience for me, and I've kind of spoken on dates about that or something. Because I know from talking about 50 Shades of Grey that this is something that's quite common in the movie, and even like bondage and S&M and stuff like that, like, out of kind of going to Torture Gardens. Like Torture Gardens is one of these places that people have heard of and they're interested in, but they don't often know anyone that's been or anyone that admits to going. So when they meet someone who's like, yeah, I've been and it's really cool, they're just full of questions. They want to talk about it. They want to know ayahuasca. It's like ayahuasca. It's exactly like ayahuasca. People want to know about it. They want to know what happens there. So what would I talk about? Most things really. Past relationships, sex. I'd even go as far to say, when I'm talking about past relationships, I might talk about the sex and be like, okay, yeah, maybe it was good. Nothing broke down in that area, because I know of a lot of relationships that's something that breaks down. But yeah, I won't necessarily go into like massive detail early on about what I like and stuff like that, but more of a kind of general discussion about sex and pleasure. And I'll even talk about sex positive accounts that we follow, like with the podcast. There's quite a few kind of sex positive accounts that we follow we really like, and I might recommend them to him, like, oh, there's this great account, you should look at this one. I remember once being on a date with a girl and I was telling her, remember there's that, is it shrimp teeth? There's a picture, it's like the things you don't see in porn. And it's like banging heads, sweat, hairy legs. And I was like talking to someone about this during a date because it was actually really funny. It's like, that's
and I think, just to consolidate on that then, because I'm just thinking now, like, have we given enough information in regards to how one can really broach the topic? Because it can be, for some people, they might just be like going on a date now and then they're sat there and it's like they've just met, they've just sat down, the drink has arrived or whatever, and then just like, okay, at some point I want to say something.
AJ's staring at me with these really weird eyes right now.
And I'm doing the finger tapping thing. Just So it's interesting, like how you said it, because there is actually a lot of references, stories. It's almost, again, going back to what we said earlier about observing the obvious and saying the obvious and just not ignoring it.
Yeah, I think that's a big one, isn't it? It's like, not, if someone says something and it can be misconstrued as an innuendo, I will call that out, right? I will easily call that out just because it's funny. Don't be that person, like, I don't know, you get some eggplant, right, on your plate. And I keep thinking of the podcast, Mike Vasella.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he talked in the podcast, he's talking to the guy and he's like, you see these girls, they get these like comments and it's just like an eggplant with a man after it, and it's like, I never knew what the eggplant meant and now I know it's meant to be a penis, and it's like, and again, that's the sort of thing I'll joke about in a date, because it's just like, there's this undercurrent. What you don't realize is everything you do, there's an undercurrent of sex all the time. Everywhere you go, all marketing, advertising, there's an undercurrent of sex, but we just pretend it's not happening. And it's like, call it out sometimes when it's funny or stupid or whatever, but it's there.
All right, cool. So I think just to close us off then, like, what advice or exercises or, would you recommend for a guy, even for a girl, actually, on a date, or in life, what would you say?
I think
one of the sex talk, this is
sex. I was going to say they should, get a plane ticket and teeth and put some deodorant on.
Floss before.
So I think one of the most important things is to talk about your own sexual experiences with your friends, and even potentially even write them down to get them out of just in your head, like the things that you've actually done or not done. And talk about them not from a like, oh, I got this. It's like from a pleasure point of view, like, oh, I enjoyed this, I love this, and I didn't love that. And talk to your friends and, get used to talking to people about sex, and be comfortable with being like, maybe it's like you like blowjobs in a certain way, or if for the ladies out there, you like a man to touch your clitoris in a certain way. Start talking to your friends about it, because you'll just get used to hearing it come out of your mouth without it seeming weird. And then also you'll learn from your friends as well, right? And you'll realize that, oh wow, we're all in this kind of pleasure game here. We're all trying to increase our pleasure in life, and then enjoy our sex. And I think that will have a knock-on effect into your dating confidence, your sexual confidence in dating, and it'll make for you be more comfortable to talk about these sorts of things on dates. And if you don't want to start doing it on the first date, for instance, but let's say you are back at your place and you've got a girl with you, or vice versa, whatever your orientation and whatever your gender, you have a partner back with you. It's like you get into bed and you're both naked. How about you ask them what they like? We have a lot of sex and we don't actually ask people what they like, and it's like, get used to kind of just talking about it. I think that's a huge thing. And if you live in London, I'm going to plug, there's something called Sex Club in London. It's this close on. You basically go and you talk about sex in a men's circle and in a women's circle separately, and then you come together. And that was an amazing, I went to that not too long ago. It's an amazing experience. Like, to talk with strangers about sex. Like, I learned a ton, and I felt like I know enough, a lot. Sorry, not enough. I never know enough. But I learned a ton, but equally, I think everyone there got a lot from listening to other people talk about sex.
Yeah, and just to add from something that you said earlier is about learning, reading, learning. So the Sex Club sounds like a phenomenal place to go and learn, but essentially, so that one can speak from a learned place, from a knowledgeable place.
Yeah, I was going to say a bit more just like learning and going online. There's so much information online. Like for men, for instance, I think the importance of understanding a woman's anatomy is so important. It's like more important than chat lines, more important than conversation skills, right?
I agree,
is understanding like how a woman feels, how to touch a woman. And obviously women aren't the same, but I think there's a huge spectrum, but there are some things that are often common, and you'll learn this.
It's just if I may add something there, it's like, it's just to understand, because we did discuss this, I think, in a previous podcast. In fact, the one on sexual expression,
Episode 4.
Yeah, it's and what that is about is like, again, there's so much emphasis on what to do on dates, where to go, how to dress, what deodorant to wear. Female one, apparently, according to Dave.
Dove.
Refer to the previous episodes. Other female deodorants do exist. But one of the things that can really raise your confidence around women is knowledge. It's like being aware that you know what you're doing. It's the same as, I don't actually ride a motorbike, but I can imagine if you don't know how to ride a motorbike and you're going to ride a motorbike, it's going to be pretty fucking scary the first time.
Whereas if you were going on dates, for instance, and you're like, I feel confident in my sexual ability, right? You're sitting there talking, and talking will be easier for you. Like, because you're not thinking, oh my God, if this goes somewhere, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. I should just also say, you're not going to get everything just from reading. Yeah. Experiential learning. I'm all about it. After coming off my Vipassana retreat, what I really got out of that is like, the number one type of learning is experiential learning. You can read stuff in a book. It don't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything. Experiential learning, going and doing things. Like this dating industry is a lot about information and stuff like that. But actually, you could listen to every one of our podcasts for the rest of the time we make podcasts, and listen to every dating podcast in the world. But if it's nothing compared to the man that's outside talking to women, or men, or women talking to men, whatever way around it goes for people, is you won't know nothing compared to that person, because they experiential learning. Yeah, agreed.
And same in sex. Like, experience is huge.
What's your final word?
Be comfortable with sex. Everyone wants to talk about it. Everyone wants to talk about sex. You just have to make sure that the particular time is comfortable. Like, I've done some hilarious things. I once told the kind of MD at the company I work for about going to Torture Gardens after a few drinks. And it went down fine, I think. I still have a job.
Yeah, that's a good sign. Yeah, and the good news is we are planning to put on some events, and definitely we'll be planning a workshop around this to support. I think predominantly we'll start with men around this topic, but I think this is definitely a hot topic in general. So you can look forward to that. To keep up to date with what we're up to, I think Instagram is the best place.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to answer some questions down there and recommend any kind of sex educational / sex positive accounts. We can do that because there's some really great ones out there.
So if you haven't found us on Instagram yet, it's at Authentic Dating Series, and we also have an email which is hello@authenticdatingseries.com, where you can message us with any questions that you have about the episode or any recommendations for future topics, because we're always open to hearing more. I mean, we've got endless. I mean, even if you don't message us, we'll just keep going anyway.
Yeah, we're gonna get topics out anyway.
Yeah.
Because I think we just like the sound of our own voices now.
Yeah. So anyway, I really do hope you've enjoyed this special episode, me interviewing David. It's been, I personally have learned a lot just sitting here. I wasn't taking notes because it's difficult to do that and pay attention at the same time. So I don't. But genuinely, I have learned a lot, and I hope you guys have too. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you guys. Ciao.
Ciao.